everybody. Welcome to Life Stories. I want to bring up the word of the week first.
It's the word of the week.
The word of the week this week is giddy because that is how I have felt since I found out I would be able to talk to my next guest. Yes, I am old enough to be his mother, but I was so excited to talk to him. If you are a reader of fiction books, you may have heard of Lucinda Riley before. Lucinda Riley has written a lot of books, but she around here is most well known for writing the Seven Sisters series. She passed away in 2021, and before she passed away, she asked her son, Harry Whittaker, who I spoke with on the podcast, to finish writing the series. So he wrote the last book, and he did an incredible job of writing. He did an incredible job of wrapping up this very detailed storyline of multiple people and relationships, and he just did a beautiful job of it. So if you're familiar with the series, you will be very excited to read Atlas if you haven't yet, and I hope you'll enjoy our conversation. I will tell you, if you have read the series and you haven't read Atlas, there are a couple of little spoiler alerts. So just a heads up, I'm warning you now. It's not a lot, but you may want to wait until after you read the book to listen to this. It was a treat to talk to him. You know, if I'm going to talk to somebody that makes me giddy, it's going to be an author probably because that's just who I am. I love books. I have so much respect for authors and people who can write good books. So I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for talking.
Is it pleasure? Is it Shara?
Shara.
Shara. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Shara.
either one. It doesn't matter.
No, I just wanted to get it right.
Both, so it could be worse. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. I have to tell you, you're probably the same age as my children, but I am totally fangirling.
Oh,
I
don't believe you have children as old as 30.
Well, I have a daughter that's 31, and she's my oldest. So, yeah.
Oh, nice. Born in 1992?
Yeah.
Nice. Good year.
We had kids very young. We were very young when we started having children. But I was in a book club where we started reading The Seven Sisters. So there could be 25 women behind me right now. They are so excited that I get to talk to you about everything because we loved those books. We were so invested in all of it and the details. And I mean, they were all wonderful. And so before I talk to you about Atlas that you wrote, I wanted to talk to you about your mom because obviously I never met her and I'm so sorry for your loss, but we have so much respect for what she did because these are not just little books. These are very detailed, very creative stories. So would you maybe honor your mom a little bit and tell us about her?
Yes, of course. I mean, it's a broad question, but to focus on the Seven Sisters specifically, they are successful, I think, primarily for three reasons. The first reason being it's escapism. It's pure fairy tale-esque escapism, which we all need in this world at the moment. It's pretty scary out there. It's pretty intense. Yeah. And to open a Lucinda Riley novel, particularly The Seven Sisters, and be transported to Rio de Janeiro or Bergen or Granada or closer to you, New York, wherever you go, it's better than reality. It's a better universe that she wrote. The books are also really hopeful. You know, there's a lot of drama and tension and death in some instances within the series, but you finish the Seven Sisters book and you just feel better about life and the world. I think also the fact that you can travel the world from your armchair is very important. The Seven Sisters, there was never really a moment of sort of explosive overnight success, which you see with some book series and novels, individual novels. But I really became aware of it changing during the COVID pandemic, certainly in Central Europe, when people weren't allowed to leave their houses, for some of us over here. And at the same time, people could travel the world with Lucinda Riley. So that was the sort of big moment, I think, for the Seven Sisters. Finally, her characterization of strong contemporary women. I mean, what a wonderful idea to take the mythology of the stars, but to characterize each of the sisters as a modern day woman with modern day problems and modern day sensibilities. I think that's the genius of the series. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want me to talk about Lucinda Riley as a mum, she was the best mum in the world. I mean, you would
Wow.
say the same thing, I'm sure, about your mom.
Mhm.
But mine really was, and we were so enormously close. We had very similar brains. I often say about mum and I, we had the same software but different casing. Um, and yeah, I miss her enormously.
Yeah. What was her writing process like? Because I just imagine there's so many details that are intertwined in all of the books, and it's a lot. It's not a few little things, it's a lot. Did she have like a map of the world on the wall with arrows pointing? I mean, like, how did she keep track of everything?
I think a lot of people think there's some sort of secret Seven Sisters basement, like a command room where
Right.
she would keep her maps, like you just
Yeah.
suggested. But the most remarkable thing about Mum was that she kept everything in her head. Everything. Nothing was ever
Wow.
written down. You won't know
Wow.
this, but my mum, she didn't type her novels latterly. She had a shoulder injury, and so
Uh-huh.
for the last decade of her life, she dictated her novels.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and she was an actor when she was younger, and so she sort of played the roles of her own characters. And so that was her process. Everything was in her brain, and yeah, she dictated the novels.
Wow. That is very impressive. I mean, really, for her to not write down everything.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, she
crazy.
lived in her own mind. It was the sort of the great escape for her. I mean, I would have liked to have lived in there. What a wonderful place to live. Yeah.
Right. That's amazing. So, what did you feel an enormous amount of pressure when she talked to you? Because I guess she knew that she was ill. She knew that she wasn't going to be able to finish the last book. Is that correct? Atlas?
No. To sort of lay out the
Okay.
timeline, Mum
Okay.
was ill for 4 years. She was diagnosed with esophageal cancer in 2017.
Okay.
Um, and during those 4 years before she died, at times she would get very, very sick, as sick as a person can be.
Right.
But Mum was always a little bit magic. She was a very special individual, and she would bounce back after these periods of intense illness, defying the laws of nature and surprising doctors, which was very Mum. And so we just all sort of assumed that pattern would continue forever, including my mother. However, Christmas 2018, she had been very ill during that time. And we just
Mhm.
finished writing a children's series together called the
Yeah.
Guardian Angel series. And she asked me up to her bedroom during that time in between Christmas and New Year. And she said, listen, just want to have the conversation. If anything happens to me, I want you to finish the Seven Sisters series. And I said, okay. And we talked about it for 5 or 6 hours. And, that conversation will always be private. But
Well,
people
yeah.
always ask me, oh, what did you talk about then? It was an emotional conversation, really,
Yeah.
rather than, a conversation about, oh, you've got to have Georg and Claudia, who
Right.
are going to be brother and sister, and they're discovered on the remote island and they've escaped a
Yeah.
concentration camp. So it was an emotional conversation, and that was it. We only ever spoke about it once. Christmas 2018. She didn't die until summer 2021, because we both knew that the plan was in place, but we both had to believe
Right.
that she would live and she would be able to finish the series
Yeah.
herself. At that point, I think she was just thinking about starting the Missing Sister, so book 7 of the series. Yeah.
Yeah. I finished reading The Missing Sister and found out online just a few days later that she had passed away. And I, like everybody else that had, been so invested, were shocked and saddened by all of it. And I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming other people thought that The Missing Sister would answer all the questions that we had throughout. And so I was so excited about Atlas. I was so excited. And I have to tell you, you did a beautiful job of this book because, like I said, there's so much information, so many details, so many people. You tied it all together perfectly. I mean, I was
Oh,
just
thank you.
thrilled with all of it. It was wonderful.
I think the main challenge of writing Atlas was making everything make sense in in a logical way as well as an emotionally satisfying way. Because I think you could have tied things up in an emotionally satisfying way, but readers would have been left thinking, wait, what? No. And you
Yes.
can only suspend your disbelief so far. I mean,
Yes.
yes, the Seven Sisters are a fairy tale.
Yes.
Some of my, I'm very pleased to say that 99.9% of feedback about the Seven Sisters series is lovely, but there's always that 0.1% which is not. And the main feedback is from that 0.1%. It's just so unrealistic, ridiculous. And I'm thinking, well, hang on a second.
It's a
You've
book.
read the opening book. Do you really think it's realistic that a mysterious,
Right.
enigmatic billionaire is going to adopt 7 women from around the world? And so yeah, that was the challenge. So I'm really thrilled that you enjoyed it, and I'm glad that it all tied up nicely for you in the end.
It did. So one of the women that I talked to, and after I told them I was going to be able to speak with you today, said, she hasn't read it yet. So she said, if there's any spoiler alerts, I don't want to know, anything yet. But the people that I have talked to that have finished it feel the same way I do. You just answered everything, because we had a lot of questions, about Passant. Was he still alive? And, all these different things. So you did an incredible job. And I just love this series. I recommend it to everybody that I know. My mom just finished reading all of them. Like, she just finished Atlas 2 days ago. So
No.
we just love
So
what you're doing.
talk to me a bit about the Seven Sisters in America, because it's the one territory where the Seven Sisters series and Lucinda Riley doesn't seem to perform as well as in the rest of the world. And I don't really have any insights as to why particularly. So how did you come across the book?
So our book club, the book club that I was in, the only reason I'm not in it now is because I moved. We read some great books, but that's, the people would be assigned every month, and they would pick a book for the month of what we're going to read. And we just started with the beginning, and, I don't know how often somebody would pick the next book. And so we just read them all through the book club. I don't know. I can only answer for, the people that I know.
Yeah.
But everybody's loved them where we are. And like I said, I recommend them to everyone because they're just incredible stories. They are fantasy. They are, crazy, but they're great stories. And, we love it here in Texas. I don't know.
Oh, great.
I don't know about the rest of America, but we love it. So I'm just very pleased with it. And I'm just very excited to talk to you today. I saw online, I looked you up yesterday because this was very quick. I was not expecting you to respond so fast. I'm thankful that you did. But you have a radio show in the UK, is that correct?
Yes.
And what do you do on your radio show?
It's for the BBC in the north of England. It's sort of generic entertainment, talking to guests, stories from the week. We have a segment, for example, called When Harry Met Sally, where I will meet a total stranger called Sally. I don't know where she's from, what she does, what her surname is, and we'll just have a chat and get to know each other. So it's stupid, silly things like that.
And I saw that you do improv.
Yeah, well, this is great to be talking to an American, because improv is huge there. Yes, so we don't really have. I guess you're kind of your way into becoming a sort of mega celebrity in the United States is you're part of an improv troupe, right? Second City, Upright Citizens Brigade, right. And then you get on SNL, and then maybe you get to do a late night talk show, or you get to be in the movies. Right. Whereas we don't really have, that's not an established path in the UK. We don't really have a sort of improv market. But nonetheless, we're one of the UK's biggest troops. We have a British show here called Doctor Who. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's about a time traveling alien.
Yes.
And our most famous show is an improvised episode of that. Oh, so wow. We'll go up and down the country improvising episodes of Doctor Who, and it's a very silly but joyous way to spend time.
Sure, laughter is important. Laughter is very important. So can people watch any of that online, or can they listen to your radio show online?
I don't know about the radio show. I think there might be all sorts of, if you use a VPN, I'm sure you could find me. Improv, I don't think it would work online, would it? I think improv's so about being in the room, being part of the moment, part of the event. Maybe they could just watch, normal, non-improvised scripted episodes of Doctor Who.
Well, what about writing? Are you doing any more writing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in addition to Atlas, as I mentioned before, I wrote a children's series with my mother.
Yes.
The way my year looks, and probably the next few years will look, is to give you a potted history of my mum.
Mm-hmm.
So she was an actor,
Mm-hmm.
and then she was struck down by a glandular fever-like illness, the Epstein-Barr virus, and that meant she couldn't get out of bed. So she stopped acting. And mum, being mum, she thought, "Oh, I'll write a book. It'll be fine." So she handwrote a manuscript, sent it into an agent, got a 3-book deal, which is very mum. This is all around the age of 25.
Wow.
And then in the UK, she wrote 8 novels under the name Lucinda Edmonds, which were, successful in the UK, but never sort of breached the global market. And then she stopped for 10 years to have 2 children with my stepfather. And she re-emerged as Lucinda Riley in 2010 with her novel, The Orchid House, as I think it's called in the States.
Mm-hmm.
And during her period as Lucinda Riley, she took 3 novels from the 1990s, which she'd originally written under the name Lucinda Edmonds, rewrote them, refreshed them for a contemporary readership, and re-released them. So I have 3 novels from the 90s, which I'm doing the same for, and I will release 1 a year for the next 3 years. So sort
Oh,
of
wow.
3 to 4 months of my year is spent rewriting those novels, and then the
Okay.
rest of the time is spent writing my own. Which will be very different to Lucinda Riley novels. My voice is more humorous, contemporary British, in the style of Nick Hornby, David Nichols. They're authors I more sort of align with.
Okay.
So yeah, that's probably what my writing year looks like. Yeah.
Well, I look forward to reading those books. I haven't read any of your mom's other books other than The Seven Sisters, but I'm gonna have to look for those.
Well, yes. I mean, she sort of established her own genre, really, which is
Yeah.
the past present time slip narratives, the
Mhm.
interconnectivity between the timelines. And they're all very similar. All Lucinda Riley books have a past timeline and a present timeline. So if you like that element from the Seven Sisters, I'd heartily
Right.
recommend any of them. Some of my personal favorites, The Girl on the Cliff. It's her most spiritual book. Lots of it is set in Ireland, which was her home country.
Yeah.
So she writes very passionately about that. The Light Behind the Window, which is not called there, it's called The Lavender Garden in the United States, is
Okay.
fantastic. It's the resistance during the Second World War, set in Paris.
Oh, wow.
Great. And The Midnight Rose as well is another one of my favorites,
Okay.
set in the days of the Raj. And yeah, very special book. Yeah.
Well, I will definitely be looking those up. I'll be excited to read them. Is there anything that you would want to share about Atlas or about anything, any little tidbit you could give us that
A
maybe nobody
tidbit.
knows?
A tidbit that nobody knows. You see, the problem is, I've spoken about Atlas so much.
You're right. You don't know what.
I don't know what secret that's left. Let me try and give you something interesting. I mean, one of the stories I always like to tell is, it was so important for me to get the continuity right because readers have been on such a journey, and
Yes.
not only did they expect it to sound and feel like a Lucinda Riley novel, there can be no discrepancy in eye color or surnames or dates.
Right.
And I worked very hard to ensure that was the case. I wrote the novel from October 2021 to October 2022, and then it got sent off to the 40 publishers. And because the works are translated into so many languages, it means that you've got 40 editors from all over the world, and I think it's about 50 to 55 translators, all of whom have worked on the Seven Sisters for the best part of a decade.
Right.
And it was a slow drip feed of emails, questions, and comments saying, "Oh, Harry, on page 242, you've described, Miles having blue eyes, but actually, on Seven Sisters, book number 6, page 121, he has brown eyes flecked with blue." And it was that intravenous feed of editorial comments which nearly killed me, because it meant, finding all the mistakes in the 800 pages of manuscript, resending it out to the publishers, and doing that for everyone. My favorite one, I think, was someone wrote to me, I think it was maybe Lithuania.
Oh my
or
goodness.
Latvia. And they said, Harry, you've got Tiggy having a cup of tea on whatever, page 71. Tiggy's a vegan. And I thought, oh my God. So that meant that I had to go through the entire book, find any instance where the sisters were eating food, and if, Tiggy was there, providing some sort of vegan alternative for her.
Oh
So
my
there you go.
goodness.
There's a tidbit for you.
I cannot imagine that many different, because I know it was in a lot of different languages. It was published in a lot of different,
Mm.
so I can't imagine that many dealing with that many editors. That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's
That's
not
a
really, you
lot.
don't really, so because you have your sort of UK editor, that's who you work from. This is more about continuity catches. The role
Okay.
of the foreign language editor is essentially to edit the translators.
Gotcha.
But because they're all obviously reading it in English,
Yeah.
they wanted to make sure that things were corrected as soon as possible. I
That
mean, the
is,
translators had a ridiculously hard job because
yes.
it was published simultaneously around the world on the 11th of May, which is so hard to do.
Yes.
And I think they only had about 4 or 5 months to translate 800 pages, which is ridiculous.
Yes.
That is a big job.
Yes.
And arguably they're the most important people. So I really feel for them, but they did a magnificent job, I think. I mean, I
They
wouldn't
did.
know. I can't speak any other languages.
Right. I wouldn't know either. But I am so thankful that I've been able to talk to you today. And I mean, this has been a treat. It really has. I have been so excited. um, Thank you for what you did with Atlas and for wrapping things up so well and just writing such a beautiful book. And I look forward to reading all the stuff that you're coming out with. I'm going to be looking for all of it. And I know that there
Thank
are
you.
going to be lots of ladies excited to listen to this interview today. So
Well, thank you so much for having me on because, I rarely
absolutely.
get to talk to anyone in America. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic. And
Yeah.
spread the word about the Seven Sisters.
Oh, absolutely. I will continue to do that.
I mean, I'm hopeful very shortly that the word will begin to spread by itself in America based on what might or might not be happening on the screen.
Right.
But I can't say too much about that.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Don't get me too excited about that. That would be amazing. Talk about
Well, it's
continuity.
happening.
Talk about details.
It's
Woo.
it's happening, and it will be available in America. But I can't say any more than that.
Well, that's exciting. That is very
Yeah.
exciting. I can't wait for that. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to reading what you're putting out.
Thank you, Sharon. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Have a great day.
Goodbye. You too.
Bye bye.